All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, we have one of the best voices. I call him the voice of the West Coast. We got none other than the legendary Greg Mack of the Greg Mack Show on the line. How you doing this evening?
I'm just happy to be on the Outlaw station, man. Underground. Love it.
I appreciate you, Greg. And I do want to say, man, I think I can speak for every other hip hop individual that is actually in the music industry and radio that you are an inspiration to all of us, man. You help give birth to so many amazing talents just with your DJing, so thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
But I gotta ask you, Greg, like, what made you decide to get into the music industry all those years ago?
You know, I don't know. It's a good question. I started in high school as an intern. I quickly learned that that's something that I enjoy. And, I went one semester of college. I said, I'll go back, let me just do this radio thing for a minute. And then I've never gone back. So it's just been nonstop. They say it's never work if you enjoy what you're doing, right?
And that's true. That's the same way I look at my thing as well. I look at it as once I first time I did radio, I fell in love with it. I was like, yeah, I don't want to do any more 9 to 5, so I'm gonna do radio.
Exactly.
And speaking of like being a DJ with radio, man, you were also well known for being the musical director at KDAY 1580 AM. I have to ask you, tell us a bit more about that, and how did that come to be for you, working at one of the biggest radio stations in all of the West Coast?
I started my career in San Antonio, Texas, KTSA, KTFM. Then I went to Corpus Christi, KEYS, KZFM. And I think I really learned a lot when I went to work in Magic 102 in Houston, Texas, before I finally landed in LA in 1983 and created the format. I guess some people call it CHR Rhythmic. Back then they called it a rap station. We weren't a real, all 100% rap station. But we also played freestyle and we played R&B. But we played more rap than anybody. And so, it was just one of those things that was a reflection of the streets, just like hip-hop itself is a reflection of the streets. And when I first moved to L.A., I noticed that because I was living in the heart of South Central, all you had to do was just open your window, and many times you didn't even have to open your window, but you heard it blasted, and everybody was blasting hip-hop. And I says, why is no one really playing that on the radio? I mean, you might hear a Run DMC song, a Sugar Hill Gang song that radio stations might play, at nighttime. Nobody really played it during the day. And it just had this, kind of bougie stigma to where, everybody's like, that rap music. Everybody would always put it down. I said, no, and so I just started playing it. And our ratings immediately went to the top, and I just never looked back.
And that's the best way to go. Sometimes you got to put your ear to the streets, especially in those situations of everybody's listening to hip hop. Sometimes you just got to change that format and give the fans what they want.
Well, that's something that radio stations always say, giving you what you want, playing your favorite song, and then they pick 40 songs and play them over and over. No, we had an open door policy, so we always had a lot of new music coming through. One of the few stations, I don't know of too many today, that you can just walk in and have them listen to your song. And that was the kind of open door policy that I enjoyed having. If you talk to many of those groups, they will tell you that before they even left the station, their song was in rotation. And so if it was good, we played it. It was just that simple.
And the one thing I do got to ask pertaining to that, because back in like the early 80s, early 90s, like hip hop was really frowned upon. You had individuals, the government attacking the genre. When you actually switched to full on hip hop, was people actually calling the station, like threatening you guys? Like were they mad that you were playing all hip hop during those times?
Politicians were calling the station. Advertisers were real skittish. Parents, actually, a lot of the parents, I got to say, gave me props because we would clean up the songs, and so the kids would hear the clean version. The major record stores wouldn't carry hip hop at that time, and then you had just a total backlash from the record companies because the way they looked at it is we just spent $100,000 on promoting this Freddie Jackson record, and you got the nerve to go and play NWA? What's wrong with you? And so, I had a few threats that I heard about. I never heard them directly, but people were telling me that, such and such was going to break your legs because you're playing that hip-hop stuff. You know what? It never deterred me. If anything, it made me more determined.
And that's true. Sometimes, if you have a vision, just go for it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the people that are calling and making the threats, they're probably not going to do it. They're probably just trying to scare you off the air.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about it is I'm a small town Texas country boy that came in and kind of changed things. And if you're from Texas, there's nothing breaks you like that. I mean, many a time when we go out and do appearances, we do the Crip area one week, the Blood area one week, the Mexican gangs one week. We even did white clubs for the white kids that wouldn't come to any of the other places. But our whole thing is we were down with everybody. We weren't down with just one group. We were down with everybody. And I think that that saved us a lot. People could understand that we were being real. We would go to the places, the bad neighborhoods that people say, "Oh, don't go over there." And even to this day, radio stations don't do it. But we would go visit them, hang out with them, get to know them. I'd go visit the schools. I've always told people, I said, I never feel like I'm above anybody. I don't feel like I'm below anybody. And I think people can genuinely hear that when you talk on the radio and in your actions,
And the one thing speaking of open door policy, the one thing that I've actually always known about you was you were the very first DJ to ever play Boys in the Hood. And I want to say, I'm sorry, you probably answered this a million times, but when you first heard that record, like, what were your thoughts? And did you think, like, Boys in the Hood would be as huge as it is today?
I didn't know. And that boils down to, people always saying, did you know that you were creating history when you were doing this? And I'm like, no. I think if we'd have known, we probably wouldn't have. We were just having fun. But that was just a case of, the very first DJ that I had mix for me on the radio was Dr. Dre and DJ Yella. And, they got so busy because of it. They had so much success. They said, we're just going to focus on recording right now. But we retained our friendship even today. And we did a song. He called me one day and he had me record a song for Easy called Radio. And so when I went in the studio, I just said, okay, well, what do you want me to say? He says, just pretend you're on the radio. I said, you sure? You want me to write it down or what? He said, no, I just do it. And I did it. And so which part do you like? He's like, that's it. Don't change a thing. And so that song was the first take, believe it or not. But the Boys in the Hood, that was a song. We were doing a club in downtown L.A. called the Casa Camino Real. That was sort of neutral territory. All of the gangs could go there. And, nobody really started anything. But Dre had walked in one night, and he had this guy with him, little short guy with Jerry curl. He said, "Hey, I want you to meet this artist I'm working with. We're thinking about doing some things. I want you to go outside and listen to it." And so the guy was Eazy-E. And so me, Dre, and Easy went and sat in my car, and they played me Boys in the Hood. And when I heard it, I said, it's pretty good. That's what I said. I said, just go and clean up the language, because he still had the, unedited version. And that was on a Friday night. Come Monday, he was there with it in a clean version. I put it on the air. By the time I got off the air, it was the #1 requested song.
Yeah, because and then speaking of that, actually, the #1 requested song, in the movie Straight Outta Compton, you actually had an actor portray you in that movie. I have to ask you, how does it feel to actually have an actor portraying yourself in a movie?
Oh, was like, man, I could have played my own part. F. Gary Gray, real nice guy. I had never met him before. You have to understand, when they started working on the movie, because for those of you that know about movies, you know in many cases it takes years, and they worked on that for years. And I think 5 years earlier, they had called me and asking me certain details about things, which none of it they used really, but they took them several years. But anyway, they called me about 2 weeks before the premiere and said, "Oh, Greg, we need you to sign off on this release because you're in the movie." And I said, "I'm in the movie?" So I didn't even know I was in the movie. I didn't even know he was playing me. But I went ahead and signed off on it. And they did put me in the movie. If you stay for the credits, you'll actually see me, and they're talking for about 2 seconds. But I did meet F. Gary Gray at the world premiere, and I walked up to him and said, "Hey, Greg Mack, I'm Greg Mack." And so we had a good laugh about it. But that was the first, and I think it's been the only time I've met him. Real nice guy.
And also, you actually owned your own record label as well called Mack Daddy Records. I have to ask you, what made you decide to start your own label during those times, and who were some of the artists that you actually had signed?
Well, Mack Daddy Records was, I put out one artist and one song, and I realized how expensive it can be. It was a rapper named King T, and we did a song called Bass, me, him, and DJ Pooh. And it became so successful so fast, I was like, oh my God. A lot of people don't realize that back then, when you put out a song, you don't get paid. You go and pay for everything, and you put this thing out, and as many people buy it, you got to keep pressing it up, but you don't get any of your money back until you come out with the next hit. And so many times, and I heard this happen to more than just me, you can come out with a record and go broke because if you don't come out with another hit record afterwards, you're not getting any money. But I was also on Motown and also on MCA Records, where we did a Mix Masters album on MCA and a Greg Mack compilation on Motown. And one of my artists had actually taken off, MC Trouble, and I think we did about 400,000 units on her first release, and then she passed away. But you know, I've been on 2 labels, and I've owned my own label, so I know a little bit about it, and I know enough about it to stay out of it.
Oh yeah, it's most definitely a costly thing for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I should just stick to picking the records, not making them.
And sometimes it's the best route to go. Because I gotta say, you're Greg. You're very great at that, man.
Well, thank you, thank you. I was blessed to be able to have that ear. And people say, well, how do you pick a record? And I'm like, first I just study people, and I listen to people. And when I go to clubs, people are like, oh, you're going out there to dance, you're out there to drink. Well, not to dance, maybe drink, but what I'm really going for is to just watch people and learn what songs they're into, what beats they're into, blah, 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 blah. I could literally go to your city. I don't know where your city is, but if I hung out with you one night, I could tell you exactly what the people in that area like. And so being able to reflect off of what the people like is always been a gift that I've enjoyed having.
And also, one of my good friends within the industry is actually Doc Nasty. He was telling me a little bit of stuff that he witnessed actually while he was working alongside you. He brought up something about yourself. You actually brokered peace between MC Hammer and Third Base. Would you be able to tell us a bit more actually about that current situation?
I don't know. That's there's a lot of stuff on YouTube about that if you go Google it on YouTube or research it. But I don't know how much of a peace treaty that was. One of the things I used to like to do if there was any drama with any of the artists is I would get them, on the phone, sometimes on the air, sometimes off the air, and just talk to them and try and, fix it up. But I knew Hammer was in town, but he couldn't make it over to the station. I knew third base was coming. They were having a little beef. And I said, Hammer, we'll get on the phone, He said, okay. So we got him on the phone. They were in the studio. I felt we'd squashed it. I thought that was it. Probably 6 months later, I'm at a convention in Atlanta, and one of the DJs for the group Third Base confronted me. He was real ticked off. He's like, "That was a setup. You set us up, dude. You set us up." And I'm like, "What in the world?" Come to find out that when they left the radio station, they had stopped to get gas down the hill, and I guess somebody started taking shots at him. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't hear anything about it. Nobody said anything about it until I heard about it that day. And I don't even think that Hammer had knowledge of what was going on. I don't think. I think that what happens a lot of times with these guys is that they have to kind of be careful when they're going at each other, because, and I know that they do it to sell records. I've actually been in the studio where you have competing groups saying, okay, I'm going to talk about, your mama and your daddy, and you talk about my sister, but, they actually sit down and plan it because they know that it sells music, but you have to be careful because the general public doesn't know. And some of these crazy people can come out of nowhere and, commit harm to somebody because they actually believe that there's drama there. And I think that that's what happened there. I think it may have been a fan of theirs, of Hammer's, that called themselves messing with them. But, I saw an interview last year, I think it was, MC Search was on a radio show talking about, he was blaming me for it. And so, I tried to reach out to him, but he wouldn't answer, obviously. So I think he was just doing it for publicity. He didn't know that I was actually still alive and I heard him. And so, sometimes you can get in the hip-hop world, you have to be careful because people can take things the wrong way.
And also, as we already know, you're the host of the radio show called The Greg Mack Show, which is a phenomenal show, by the way. I've listened to it quite a few times. It's a little bit harder to get it down here, but whenever I do have the opportunity to catch it, I do. But if you can you tell our listeners like a bit more about your show and, of course, like where can we actually give it a listen?
Well, you can, we're on, I don't know, 20-something stations. But you can listen online. Whether it's in Vegas, Jammin' 105.7, Magic 92.5, San Diego, Old School 104.7, Riverside. List goes on, but you can listen to us via stream. But I always tell people that if you really want to have a reflection and a connection as to what was going on in the years that 1580 KDAY was around, you need to listen no further than our show. It is based upon what we were doing in the 80s. And so it's just old school, hip-hop. We throw in a little freestyle. If you like old school, you're going to love our show. I've got one of the best mixers. I've been very blessed to work with some of the best mixers in the world, from Dr. Dre to Tony G to M-Rock to Cooley. I mean, the list goes on. And now the chosen one is DJ Shy. And so DJ Shy is carrying on the legend. So he's one of the best classics mixers on radio, is what I always call him. And there's a lot of good ones out there, but he's my favorite because he's on my show. So that's why I like him so much.
And so, so one thing I do want to ask, is there any up-and-coming guests at all that you actually want to promote that's coming on your radio show?
Connie Breeze, she does our entertainment stuff. She does all the interviews and stuff like that, and she's always got some A-list star on the show. It's kind of interesting. Connie does all of her stuff. She's out of Las Vegas. Shy, he's out of San Diego. I'm out of Palmdale, California. And so we all do our bits, and then we send it to our producer, who's actually in Oxnard, Ventura, California. And so in today's technology, it's worked out real well. I do want to remind people, though, that, we're talking about 1580 KDAY, and I guess it'll be a press release coming out, probably in August, uh, that there is a documentary being done, and we're going to start filming. We were supposed to start this year, but obviously because of the coronavirus, we're trying to get it done in the first quarter of 2021, and hopefully we'll be out, by summer or sometime next year. You will get to see the real story, because there's been a lot of his stories. That's what I call it. So I just want to set the record straight on what really happened during that era, at least from the radio perspective.
And speaking of the documentary, that was actually my next question. But since you pretty well answer majority of that, like, is there a little bit more you can tell us, like, without obviously like breaching any contract or anything like that?
No, I think that it's just telling about how I did what I did and what my thinking was. All of the headwinds that I faced, and there was a lot of them. All of the times that I would get shot at. I don't think they were so much shooting at me, but I just happened to be in the area every week where there was something going on. But it just tells the entire story of what would change music forever. Because, like I said, at that time I was really frowned upon for playing rap music. And so I just wanted to get the story out there. There's also a book that should be coming out around that time. I've been working very hard on finishing the book. And then there'll be other things, but those are the two things that you can expect to see in 2021.
Sounds great. And I gotta ask, Mac, other than the book and the documentary, what is next for you? Anything else you want to promote? Any other radio shows that you do that we might not know of that you want to let our listeners know about?
For those that live in Southern California, I'm sure that a lot of you probably listen to me. I do a part-time shift on 94.7 The Wave in Los Angeles. And so I'm doing that every Saturday. And then, a lot of times during the week, I will come on for several days. But it's funny because I figured it out that starting at 7 o'clock on Friday evening, you're going to hear me on the air on a different station, minus 4 hours. Every hour I'm on somewhere for that whole weekend. So if you really want to find out, where to hear me, it's plenty of places. And I'm just having fun. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I love, what I'm doing. I love seeing what people like you are doing with Outlaw radio. It's really fascinating to me. I tell people all the time that is your station's online, am I correct?
It's online, yes, worldwide. I'm trying slowly to try to bring it to the FM dial, but I don't really like censoring the music. So, like, I might have to, if I want to bring it to FM, I'm going to have to censor it.
Keep doing what you're doing. What my point is that I always tell people that is the future, what you're doing. You are, blazing a trail. I think that one day, and I see it could happen sooner than later with all the satellites that are putting up in the sky, when there is no longer buffering on your phone so that you can hear internet all the time, internet radio is going to be the future. Now, realistically, how long will that be? I'm going to guess, another 10 years. But once it does happen, it's going to be very interesting because there are thousands of people attempting to do what you're doing, and you're doing it very well. So congratulations to you.
And I do have to say, Greg, man, like, that, it's an absolute honor hearing that from an individual that, has been doing radio for, like, many, many years, and what you did for hip-hop, just hearing that from you is an absolute honor, man. So thank you so much.
I love trailblazers. I love people that are doing things, that are on the edge. I think that in order to grow, that's the way you do it. Radio has become so complacent and being so corporate now. And it used to be that you actually would listen for the music. Now it's different reasons. Maybe there's good DJs, and there are some good DJs on the air, but you don't really listen unless you just want to hear the same songs over and over. And you used to listen to the radio to hear all the new stuff. You don't get that anymore. So that's why it's so important for people like you to keep doing what you're doing, because you are exposing that new stuff and giving people opportunities that tuning in to you guys.
I appreciate that, Greg. And I do got to say, so this is the time, Greg, in the interview that I give a chance for the individual that comes on the radio station. Just a chance to give shout-outs to whomever they want to give shout-outs to. And if you can, drop them social media handles. That way individuals can follow yourself and the Greg Mack Show if they're not already doing so.
Greg Mack Show. Go to Facebook and go to the Greg Mack Show. I have two sites. I have one on personal. It just says Greg Mack. But the one I'm on the most is Greg Mack Show. So go on there and like us. And then once we do make this announcement in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be kind of updating the adventure of putting all this together and reconnecting with some of the biggest names in hip-hop. And so I'm going to be putting bits and pieces on the Greg Mack Show Facebook site. And so if you'd like to, get some behind-the-scenes looks at it, go like us and stay in touch. It's going to get real exciting here starting in August.
And I gotta say, Greg, thank you so much again for coming on 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM. It was an absolute honor and most definitely a privilege to have such a legendary West Coast DJ like yourself on my station, man. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to that documentary, and I'm looking forward to what's next for Greg, for Greg, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, my man.
You are most certainly welcome. Have yourself a wonderful night and try and stay safe out there.
All right. God bless.
God bless.